And we are live. What's going on? LinkedIn, YouTube, and Facebook Live. It is your man, Coach Rowe. Today is Tuesday. What is it? May 28th, the last session of season 4 of the Men's Circle. Man. And I'm thinking of some changes we'll talk about at the end, but I'm thinking of some changes to the Men's Circle. But anywho, season 4, last session. We're going to jump straight into tonight's topic. Tonight's topic is fuel for the vision. I keep wanting to say fuel the vision, which comes from the movie Fuel the Jet, Fuel the Jet, Fuel the Jet. But fuel for the vision. As always, I like to share what the topics mean to me. But before I jump into what the topic means to me, what's going on, Brother Tim? Before I jump into what the topic means for me, I want to give my brothers an opportunity to introduce themselves. And he just disappeared just like that. But I want to give my brothers an opportunity to introduce themselves and share what does the topic fuel for the vision mean to them. Brother Bruce, it looks like you're up first.
Yeah, I was looking around for the other brothers and one popped in, popped out. So if you've been here before, you know my name is Bruce. Me and Billy go way back. That's my brother, my life coach. You know, me and Coach Rowan here. I'm gonna get right into it. So what does it mean to me specifically? Honestly, me and Billy just talked about this earlier today, and he's like, "Oh," I was like, "Well, what's the topic?" And I chewed on it for the rest of the day after we had that conversation. And I just keep coming back to the same type of mentality. For me, the fuel for the vision that I'm chasing after has a lot to do with mindset, right? The mindset I'm in, the state of mind that I'm in order to be calm, focused, and intentional about completing the tasks that get you to the vision, right? So for me, the fuel for my vision would be anything that brings peace, really, right? Anything that brings you right back to that mind state of peace. It's just easier for me to accomplish. I mean, we accomplish things through stress no matter what, right? But the vision that I have, the one that I'm chasing after, the journey that I'm on, I think the fuel for that for me is actually, anything that alters my state of mind out of so peace would be the fuel for vision. I'm rambling. We got word salad tonight, baby. It's going.
Brother Tim, welcome, man. You jumped in and then you jumped out, but
I was having audio issues, so I jumped in, jumped out. The old, I make the joke all the time, just had to blow in the cartridge real quick.
Right.
I was working. Nothing different, just get out, get back in. But the fueling the vision. Sometimes you got to look at the vision, right? Is the vision too grand to where you'll get discouraged and won't follow through? So sometimes you got to break in those visions into little steps. And stop looking at it in such a grand fashion because it'll discourage you. I know that from experience. Hey, I'm starting to work out again. I want to lose 20 pounds in 2 weeks. It's like, wow, that's pretty ambitious. You're not there. Oh man, why am I even doing this for? Pass the ice cream. You start getting discouraged. But so sometimes, for me, what's really helped me over the years is giving myself the thing that's going to set me to the next thing. Instead of fuel for the vision, checkpoints for the journey. Where's this? Okay. Then I want to get to this checkpoint. And then when you get to that checkpoint, assess how you did, how long it took you. And maybe that's the time where you can set future goals. But to me, the checkpoint things work wonders for me, career-wise and as a, father and a husband, just because you having that expectation to turn things around. We're very accountable people, the people that are on this show, the people that watch this show, I'm guessing. One of the downsides that we're kind of hard on ourselves and we want to maximize everything. And sometimes you're adding stress to already a stressful existence. Take it day by day, that type of thing. So that's what it means to me. The fuel of vision is, and then you got to say, okay, well, what fuels is that checkpoint? It's support. Sounds really embarrassing to say. Recognition, man. I didn't think I was one of those people that needed recognition. I really didn't. You know what I mean? I thought, man, I don't give a shit what people think, you know? Partially right. I care what some people think. And when you're doing good and using the weight loss metaphor, and your wife says, man, you're looking, oh man, your arms are feeling bigger. Next thing you know, we're going up 5 pounds tomorrow, baby. It's funny how like that's the fuel, like that. The wanting to be heard thing also means wanting to be seen,
Right.
and that's really the fuel of when you have the recognition of those are the opinions that matter to you. So,
Well, see, and that's why you shouldn't feel embarrassed to say that, because it's crazy how being recognized by the right people for the things that you're doing can fuel the vision, right? That is absolutely 100% fuel for the vision in a situation to where you are doing things that other people see you're doing, and they try to, fuel your vision with that recognition, and it doesn't hold as much weight because the reason why you're doing it, or the recognition that needs to be given because of all of the work you're putting in for said audience, they're not given that recognition, and that can set you back, bro. No, don't ever be embarrassed, bro. That's so fuck. I mean, excuse me, free.
But what I mean by that is you always you pride yourself in, man, I don't care what anybody thinks, but you do care about how some people think. It's a very human thing, and it's also what I mean by support. Let me support could be very minimal in helping me accomplish something. What I really need is, don't present me with obstacles. So I'll give you examples. I'm losing weight, right? So my wife, I love my wife to death, but this is one of the things that she does, like when I'm working on nutrition and stuff like that. She always show me something that looks good. Like I was like, man, I'm thinking about doing a 7-day fast. I'm planning for that. That's probably going to be like next week. And she's like, hey, you see Cold Stone got that Choco Taco. Your Choco Taco was your favorite. You see they got one at Cold Stone. I'm like, why are you doing this to me? Or we're trying to save money, so we're going to food, we're going to Costco, we're getting, meal prep and all that. Let's not stop and spend money on Starbucks on the way home. Like, you know what I mean? Like, a long-time contributor and often guest once said, keep the main thing the main thing. You know what I mean? Right. So that's the importance of that. Is it's not so much support. I mean, it's nice to get that support, but it's don't give a hurdle either.
Yeah. I agree with you on that, but I feel like it's not nice to get the support. It is also a requirement. Like, support is like, there's varying degrees of support, right? But there's like, you can give maximum support, but I'm not asking for maximum support. I'm asking for some kind of version of support. But what I definitely don't need from you is sabotage, because that's the other side of support. And it's funny because me going to the gym, same thing with my wife. It's like, on the way home, can you pick me up some Taco Bell? Can you pick me up some chicken nuggets and we'll share that? And I'm like, I'm going to eat something if you get it. So why are you asking me to get it? I just worked out for like 1,500 calories and you're about to put like 800 of them back in my body because I don't have that kind of self-control. So I feel what you mean.
Position because of a self-control issue.
Like, right.
Yeah.
Support me by saying, you know what, my husband's working out. While he's gone, I'm going to go and get this food. Or when he gets back, I'll go and get the food for myself, but I won't get it for us. He won't have to worry about getting it for us. Bet. I can live with that. So, no, I feel where you're at on that. When I actually was thinking about this topic, I thought about this topic probably 2-3 months ago about fuel for the vision. And I was like, I really want to land on the vision out of all the things that we've spoken about. I shouldn't have drank that Canadian Clip. Excuse me. Out of all the things that we spoke about in this season of the Men's Circle, where we're going through, silent suffering. We've gone through all these different aspects. Well, that was last season, but still this year that we spoke about silent suffering and moving to a strategic place. I really want to start turning these conversations into almost like macro and micronutrients. What are the macro and micronutrients that we need as men in order to be who we ultimately want to become, right? And so when I started thinking about fuel for the vision, I started thinking about how some guys are like car buffs, like our brother Matt. He's a car buff. Like that's his joint, that's his job. But he can tell you all these things about cars, including the types of fuel that those cars need, right? Like this one needs to take premium fuel because if you put that 82 octane or whatever year it is in it, it's going to be bad for that car, right? It is strange to live in a space where we as people will pay attention to the manufacturer's recommendation for fuel on a vehicle and put the appropriate fuel into that vehicle based on the manufacturer's requirement, regardless of the cost, right? Because everybody know like premium gasoline is probably like 40 cents more expensive than your everyday run-of-the-mill water and gas mix, whatever that is in the bottom range. I don't know what it is, but
the squirt I'm pumping into my car,
right? The siphon gas that they put into the tank for you. I don't know, but we will put that premium fuel into a vehicle that is only going to take us truly from point A to point B. Like at the end of the day, maybe you might get the girl because she likes your car. But at the end of the day, a car is a car. Transportation is transportation. It's designed to get you from one point to another point. But when it comes to the fuel that we put in our minds, we are not as critical and we are not as stringent on the requirements for what we are going to put into ourselves, whether it's in our minds, our bodies, or whatever. We're not as critical on that. And this year, I really started looking at like just small questions of asking myself things. So like, I'm like, okay, if I go and drink a container of beet juice, right? I'll go to the bathroom and my urine will be red because of the beet juice. And I'm clearly understanding it's the beet juice. I'm not bleeding to death on the inside. It's the beet juice. But if I drink a big red soda that is also red, but it's red from dye, right? I will not have red urine. So then I started asking myself questions like, well, where does the dye go? Like, how come the beet juice goes through my body and processes and moves through, but the artificial dye doesn't? And so I started changing like, okay, we're not going to do dyes anymore. That's why the drinks that I'm drinking now are pretty much not colored drinks anymore. And if you do that, you do that. It's indifferent. I'm indifferent to it. But for myself, when I started thinking about fuel for the vision, I started thinking about the financial aspect of fuel, and I started thinking about the physical aspect of fuel, like my ability as a man to just even defend my own household, right? I got to have a certain amount of fuel. I can't be malnourished and ain't ate in 8 days and somebody break in here and I'm gonna put paws on them. They're gonna run me over because I ain't got the energy for it. But I started looking at that. I started looking at like the organic foods that I have the options of eating. Okay, I can eat this organic option of strawberries instead of this, non-organic option. And does it cost more? Yeah, it does cost a heck of a lot more. So I don't eat as many strawberries. But when I do get strawberries, I enjoy them because I'm like, these joints, they cost a pretty penny. So I started thinking about this fuel for the vision in almost in every aspect of my life and looked at it as from that car analogy to where I'm no longer going to put 82 octane fuel in my body. I'm no longer going to put 82 octane fuel in my mind. And a lot of that has caused me to move away from certain types of content. I used to love, and I don't know if it's a guilty pleasure or just because I grew up in this type of environment, I used to love watching fight videos. Like fight, just like, oh, boy got knocked out. Right. But the thing is that in watching that, you're conditioning your mind to be confrontational. And I had to say, is that going to truly fuel me to my vision? If I'm in the art of negotiating, or if I'm in the act of negotiating a contract, or in the act of negotiating pay, or in the act of negotiating an opportunity, is having a combat stricken mind or a combat fueled mind really going to help in that negotiation to get me what I want? And the reality is, I came to the conclusion on a lot of the things that I was allowing myself to choose that no, it's not going to get me what I want. So how do I get that? How do I get to what I want? I have to change the fuel, because I'm going to tell you right now, if you get a Bentley and you put a gallon of water in it thinking it's going to fuel you from point A to point B, you're going to be sitting in the same spot you put that gallon of water in, wishing you kept the gallon of water because you're going to be walking. So this is where, for me, when I think about this topic, I think about how do we ensure that we are getting the proper fuel. Oh, okay. How do we ensure we're getting the proper fuel, and how do we also ensure that that fuel reaches maximum efficacy, right? Like, how do we get the most miles per gallon out of this fuel, whether that be support from our spouse, whether that be support from our kids, whether that be support from our boss, whether that be support from our friends, whoever we're trying to get that support from. How do we get the maximum efficacy from that support circle that we're using to fuel towards our vision? So that's when I started thinking about this. This is what that topic meant to me. But Tim, you brought up a really good point in the aspect of sabotage, and it actually made me think about my first question in regards to determining the type of fuel you need, right? Because sometimes you need a cheerleader, sometimes you need a kick in the ass. Like, let's be honest. Like, sometimes you need somebody who says, hey, you know what? I believe in you and you can do that. The other time you need the person who says, I'm 100% disappointed that you didn't get that done. Get it done. So how do you guys determine the fuel that you need in order to get you to that space that you're trying to reach in your vision?
All right. That's a good question. I think for me, and I think this is why I love the circle, the tribe that I have, because how I determine the fuel I need is also how I determine who I call, right? Mm-hmm. Now, just throw this out there, disclaimer, I don't have any yes men in my circle, so it doesn't matter who I call. But some people are more willing to be, I'm disappointed in you, Bruce, and you really should have, you fucked up. Let's just speak frankly, right? I have brothers that'll just tell you that shit straight the hell out. Like, Bruce, you. So for me, I determine the fuel I need based on how I performed, right? So if I know I messed up, I'm going to call who's going to tell me I messed up, right? If I know I could have did a little bit better, or I needed a little more push, it just depends on, that's a great question. How do you determine? It depends on the situation, man. If I need a kick in the ass, that's the fuel I need. If I need a shoulder to cry on, that's the fuel I need. It just depends on the situation and how I performed prior to being fueled. Does that make sense? It's going to be word salad tonight, y'all.
It does. I'm sorry, Tim. What'd you say?
I was saying it makes a ton of sense. The situationally based fuel. So for me, it's what's really interesting about, and you said it, Billy, and then Bruce, you said it just ignited in my head. The most successful goals I've had in my life didn't start with a statement for the goal. It started with questions and curiosity. What does this look like? Then you start going, like, career-wise. What's next for me? What role fits my strong suits? What role would I like? Really, what I'm big on is in my career is how do I feel about my job? Do I feel fulfilled? You know what I mean? So that's really big with me. But you start asking, like, I didn't know that at the time, and you start really, like, to backtrack just a little bit. There was a point in my life where I'm sure a lot of people have done this, where they really hated what they did for a living. And I would get up in the morning and I would take my kids to school and I would sit in the parking lot wondering, what if I just didn't go in today? What if I turned this damn car around and went home? Because I just didn't, I hated what I did for a living. It was like eroding my soul. And I could have done what a lot of guys our age do, just grit our teeth, bear it, work, be the provider, and die of a stroke in my mid-50s because of all the stress, right? But I was like, okay, I can't just say I want something new because that's aimless. I'm just going to apply for whatever's there. It's like, okay, it needs to be calculated. What gives me fulfillment? Then you start thinking, okay, what gives me okay, that gives me fulfillment. Okay, what roles match that fulfillment? That type of thing. Okay, now that you see those roles, what is the requirement of those roles? What do I need to meet the requirements? Who do I need to see and put the interest through? And it's all of it is really question based, and you can even do that with like the fitness. Is like, okay, if you just go and you want to work out and your goal is to be Chris Hemsworth, then you're going to be disappointed in about a month when you're not seeing the rapid results, especially in our microwave society where people are posting videos of massive transformations in a matter of seconds, but you didn't see all the hard work, all the sweat spilling on the floor from 2 years worth of work. You're just like, man, I'm not seeing my results lickety split. I want to post a video and show everybody where I'm looking, and it's taking longer. And it's like,
yeah, it's taking as much time as it took them.
Right. So the okay, I want to get in shape. Why? And then you got to be honest with yourself. It could be, I don't want my life cut short. We all know people in our age that had their life. You're like, wait a minute, so-and-so had what happened to their heart? What? Like, wait a minute, we're young, man. What the hell is happening? That's nah. And then you start thinking about, okay, am I taking care of myself? And then so questioning why you want to do it in the first place, to find your motivation. To me, that's the fuel. It's the curiosity onto why you're going through the venture in the first place. And usually the easy answer is because you're not happy with it, right? Or you want to see change with the present. You want to enhance the present or whatever it is. Because not all goals have to be a drastic change. Some of it is just an elevation to where you're currently at. But the fuel always starts with the question, what will keep me motivated? You know what I mean? Like because if you just say, hey, I want to cut 50 pounds and I want to cut 50 pounds in 6 months, and you look at it and 1 month's gone down, you cut 5, you're like, at this rate, I'm losing half of that. Like
the math ain't mathing.
So right. And so the fuel is, if you really get these things, we're not qualified to set our own goals for a lot of things. And I think we need to realize that. And sometimes you have to do an assessment and see where you're at and be more realistic and take more steps. Okay, I thought I was going to do that in 5 months. I'll do that in a year. Like, perfect example. We saved up for our house, right? We moved to an apartment to save money. We were going to do that for a year and then put the thing on the house. The year came up. We had not as much money as we wanted to. We had amounts saved, but we didn't have enough as we wanted saved. And things that came up over the year. Life happens because when you plan on nothing's going to happen.
Right. Perfect case scenario.
Perfect in a vacuum scenario. And then you get discouraged when life happens and you get beat yourself up a lot. And when you, like for that, okay, let's renew the lease. Let's do another year. And we did it and everything worked out just fine. Like, we got to get off this competition, like timelines, and have the goal, keep working towards your goal. If it takes you 5 months, 6 months, a year, listen, it don't matter if you get there. It don't matter. But like, my advice on how to identify the fuel is ask yourself those tough questions. What gives me happiness? What gives me fulfillment? What do I want to see changed? What does that look like? What do I need to do to get there? And then you got to have a open dialogue. I mentioned in the beginning, like, I realized I cared about what some people thought. you got to make sure those people are locked in with you.
Right.
Because man, a little comment, especially from like my wife or my son said to this me at the gym the other day, he's like, "Hey, I didn't know you could run like that, Dad." And that was like a Mario mushroom on the racetrack. I'm like, boom, look at this next sprint interval then. You know what I mean? So it's funny, like for me, you got to understand what is your fuel. Some people do need the recognition. And that's what fuels them the most. Some people, they need the honesty, but too much of anything is not good. You get too much, you get your head inflated if you get too much praise. You're getting defeated if you're getting too much of that. You got to find the balance. I rambled too much. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, you're spot on though. With that's how I determine the fuel I need. Like it's a series of questions. Like, and it starts with my present moment. Like, it's wild. So my right ankle was swollen for like, I mean, not crazy swollen, but it was swollen to where I was like, dang, my ankle is swollen for probably like 6 months to 8 months. And then all of a sudden I start working out for 6 months, 7 months. And my ankle, all of a sudden I looked down, I was like, my ankle is skinny. What's wrong with my ankle? I was like, oh, that's what my ankle looked like before I'm tripping. But it's those small little series of questions like, yo, how long do you really want to be here? Because if you're not working out, if you don't have some kind of cardiovascular exercise in your life, that you're putting yourself at risk for your heart to be like, hey, yo, I'm done. You don't really do nothing with me, so I ain't no need me doing these beats no more. I'm out of the producing business, right? And so because of that, I started just, what can I do? Like, it wasn't like, I knew I wasn't going back to 2017 when it was like I was in the gym all the time, super fit, super cut, super strong, super everything. I was like, I ain't really trying to go back to that point because I don't really care like that. And I don't want to maintain that. That took a lot of effort and energy. But here's what I want to do. Can I do 20? It's questions. Can I do 20 workouts on 30-day months? Can I do 21 workouts on 31-day months? Can I do that? Yes, I can. And then making that commitment to that. And then it's funny because then I start doing that. And I mean, I'm hitting my 20 days. I'm hitting my 21 days, hitting my 20 days, hitting my 21 days, which then leads another question. Well, what is a workout? Like, what is considered a workout? How am I going to measure if on day one I did a workout and day two I did a workout, that they're somewhat equal, or at least a minimum requirement? And so that's when I started counting the calories of my workout. It was like, okay, a workout in the beginning was 250 calories. If I worked out for 250 calories, which doesn't seem like a lot because a candy bar is 220 calories. 250 calories don't seem like a lot. However, when you're bench pressing on your 6th and 7th and 8th set, and I'm at 178 calories burned and I still got 80 to go and I'm tired, all of a sudden it's like, no, 250 is pretty reasonable coming back into it. But determining the fuel to get to the vision of being healthy, being in shape, being fit, those things, that fuel started with, okay, can I do 20 days? Yeah, I can. Okay, now that I've shown that I can do 20 and 21 days, can I make sure that each day at least has a 250 calories in it? Yes, I can. Great. And then pushing it up. Okay, now this month I want to do 300 calorie workouts. Pushing it up. This month I want to do 500 calorie workouts. And so now when I'm playing basketball or bench pressing or doing whatever I'm doing, my mind has this idea of the fuel for this is, you don't want to get to 498 calories burned and be like, oh, I'm done. Nah, I got to get to 500, because if I don't get to 500, this workout don't count. And then what that also inspired as far as additional, like what I call the rocket fuel, right? Because there's car gasoline fuel that'll get you from point A to point B on the ground, but it ain't going to get you to the moon. Then there's rocket fuel that is much more combustible, that will launch your trajectory off of this goddamn rock, never to be seen again. So when I started thinking about the rocket fuel, what was happening was like, hey, I did 500 calories for this workout. I think I want to keep going, but I know if I keep going, in order to count another workout, I got to get another 500 in this workout. And I watched as my workouts went from 250 to 300 to 500 to 750 to 1,000 to 1,500 in a workout. And it's because at the end of the day, I want to be physically fit. I want to be healthy. I want to have good health and not poor health. I don't want to go to the doctor and have to get on a bunch of pills and my blood pressure this, my cholesterol that, diabetes, sugars this. I don't want to have to do all that stuff. So I'm doing things that begin to shift that trajectory away from the trajectory I believe I was probably headed towards, right? Like, how crazy would it be? But like, hey, y'all gonna be on the men's circles tonight? Hey, did you know Ro died from a stroke last like 15 minutes before we got on the show? Like, I'm not trying to be in that situation. So for me, like when you say asking those questions are what drive me to the space of where I'm pushing myself, right? Because I do believe part of the fuel, how I determine part of my fuel is what are my expectations of me? And then are my expectations of me realistic? Or are they I'm going to lose 100 pounds in 10 days? Now you're going to die trying to lose 100 pounds in 10 days. So those questions lead me to my own expectations. And then because I know what my expectations are of myself, then I'm able to identify the support that I need. So like, for instance, my wife is not really into going to the gym. She loves to swim. She can outswim me any day of the week, but she's not really into the gym like that. And she told me that when we first started. She's like, are you a gym rat? Because I'm not really into the gym like that. I was like, nah, I go to the gym to work out. And so she is not my workout accountability partner all the time. There are times where she's like, babe, you might as well get up and go now to the gym because, you know, if you don't do it right now, you're not going to go. And I'll listen to that and I'll say, you're right. I'll get my stuff on and I'll drag myself to the gym. But my accountability partner is a completely different human who, after I get done with my workouts, I pull my watch up, I take a picture of my workout, the time and the calories, and I send it to them. And we do that with each other all the time. Hey, did you go to the gym and work out? No, I didn't go and work out today. Okay, well, are you going to work out today? Yeah, I'm going to work out today. All right, I'll be looking for confirmation later on. That accountability is that fuel that keeps me going in those moments where I'm out here in Utah. I'm kind of isolated and I kind of like it, but I'm in Utah. And so there's really nobody that I'm going to the gym to meet to work out with. So I don't have the accountability of somebody's there waiting on me. Somebody's there expecting me to spot them. Somebody's there. I don't have that. So the only accountability that I can derive out of it in order to create the fuel that I need to hit the vision or the goal is I got to have somebody that I'm tapping in with to say, hey, yo, I did what I said I was going to do. Hey, yo, it was the number of calories that I said it was going to be. And so for me, when I'm determining, like you, Tim, when I'm determining what fuel I need, I ask questions, but I also look at what my expectations are of myself. And then I mirror who do I believe can help me maintain and hold me accountable to those expectations. Going back to you, Bruce, not having yes people in your circle. Yeah, you deserve a day off. But I also find sometimes when I'm determining my fuel, I determine when I'm using the wrong fuel. And that's where it's almost like sometimes they say, oh, you can take a negative and make a positive. You can, but that's not the most efficient way to make a positive.
That's such a dumb thing to say. Like,
and I'm sure dog poop has nutrients in it, but I don't eat that. Like, right. So the thing for me is being able to understand that those sometimes that person who's driving the negative narrative is you, and realizing, like with my rocket fuel analogy, right? Realizing that when I'm in these rocket fuel moments where I'm like, oh, I could do 1,000 calories today, I could do 1,500 calories today. I also have to keep in mind, if I do 4,000 calories today on a workout, what condition is that going to lead me in to hit my other goals throughout the remainder of the week? And so I've learned to like taper off, you know, especially if you're playing basketball. I don't know why these young bloods be like, hey, OG, you want to play another one? Come on, play another. Hey, I'm done. I'm all the way done. You see the laces? Those are untied. I'm not bending back over to tie those. You lost your mind.
Just standing through.
Right.
Laces untied.
So, but
Crocs on feet.
Right.
Universal
I mean,
sign
hey,
done.
dude, it up. They be mad at me. Hey, come on, just play one more. You don't understand. I don't care about none of what y'all think about whether I play another game or not. I don't care. So, learning not only the fact of what fuel I need, but when I am burning too much fuel to where I'm not going to be able to make it. It's like driving 120 miles an hour on the freeway trying to make it from California to the East Coast. You're going to burn through gas way faster. You're going to be stopping a lot more times to get gasoline, which is going to make your trip even longer, regardless of how fast you're driving. And so for me, I'm learning like that balance and determining when to consume more fuel and when to say, hey, you've done what you said your target was for the day. Take a break because you still have 5 more days that you got to do this week. Like that's how I determine the fuel that I need. And oftentimes, I feel like as men, oftentimes we find out in the moment the fuel that we need. And unfortunately, it comes at a time of fuel deficiency. Like the beginning of my marriage was very tumultuous in the aspect of trying to figure out the fuel that I needed as a husband from my wife and trying to give the fuel to my wife that she needed from her husband. It was just like, it felt like a rocky road with a bunch of potholes on it. Like, I was like, how we got rocks and potholes. But that's what it felt like for me, trying to determine what fuel she needed. But what I was also learning in that tumultuous position was, hey, these are the things that I need from you. This is the type of support that I need from you. If I'm coming, one of the things my wife is really big on is about safety. If you're coming to me and telling me you need safety, and then I provide that safety, but then there's no safety for me, that's not going to fuel your safety very long. Like your safety is going to be diminished because there's not going to be any fuel to keep that fire burning for your safety. And so I feel like that's another aspect in which we learn or determine what fuel we need is sometimes in those negative spaces, but I don't feel like that is where we should be building our positive, I should say our most positive forms of fuel in our lives is in that negative space. Yeah, you'll learn some things in negative, but let's try to build positive fuel in a positive space. So
it's funny because when you hear negative, one of the first things that come to my head is like fear, right? But it's incredibly funny how fear is a very real fuel. It's very real. And I always pose this question to people that I get that come to my team and I'm the new supervisor. After I get to know them a little bit, I'll ask them, I was like, in your opinion, in my opinion, there's 2 types of people. There's people that run faster when they're chasing the dog, and there's people that run faster when the dog's chasing them. Which one are you? And for me, it's not universal. Like for me, there's areas where I'm faster when the dog's chasing me. And usually that is in health. It's anything that has to do with me, I put off. So I'll let the fear get me straight. But the things that revolve around my wife, my kids, my career, those things I'm chasing it, which is in a weird way kind of backwards. Because you end up neglecting the very thing that's doing the chasing. Mm-hmm. And it's having that come to that realization, like, okay, how do I use that fear? And then having a real conversation, like you kind of shared like that, like, I have a doctor's appointment in September. I use that. I earmark that as the date in which for me to get some massive change. Mm-hmm. Like I want to go to that doctor's appointment and not have her tell me you're borderline diabetic, you have high blood pressure. Here's the slew of the medicines that are going to make you, and I don't want to have that Sunday, Monday, Tuesday pill thing that my parents and my grandparents had. You know what I mean?
Right.
I'm trying to avoid that. And so that's the way that you like run away from this case. The dog is death. Your death is chasing you, and once you realize that, and you realize the less you move, the easier you're getting to catch for death, and that's why his ass swoops and gets you. Because if you're not used to running and you're not used to running, he's just so. It's funny. Like the analogy I have in my mind about wellness now and death is, it's like the tortoise and the hare. We're the hare. We do all this stuff. We get cocky. We get way far ahead of death, and we start laying around, getting comfortable, eating, putting, 2 crumble cookies and putting Cold Stone ice cream between them and having an ice cream sandwich and going nuts. And next thing you know, we look and death is right there. Oh, well, let me get straight.
Right. Can I have a bite?
Right? Can I have a bite? That looking really good. I got something to cut that motherfucker right down the middle too.
That's crazy, Tim, because what you're explaining, if you ain't break a sweat ready, death gonna catch you fast, right? And how many of us are walking around not break a sweat ready, right? Like everybody think they're a tough man ready, want to tussle until you got to break a sweat. Now, when that sweat break out, one of us gonna quit. You know what I mean? And one of us is still break. Oh, we just now broke the sweat. I'm ready now, right? So that what you're saying is, it's kind of what fuels the journey for me in terms of the healthy aspect of it, right? Because if you're not break a sweat ready, death is coming, right? My dad got up out of here at 58. I think he was 57. Ooh. 57 is crazy, bro. I'm 42 years old. 57? That's nuts to me. That's absolutely wild.
And I think a lot of that is hereditary because my dad ran a race with my sister down the street when I was a kid. She was probably like 16. And he lost the race barely. And when he got done, he spit blood. And when they went to the doctor, he had a spot on his lungs. He ain't smoked a cigarette since that day. Cigarettes went bye-bye. And he quit cold turkey because my dad was like a lot of men, that the things that they're driving towards to help to benefit their family, they're 100% tunnel vision. I got to do this. My career's got to be good. Make more money. Make sure they're good. But they never ask make sure that they're good.
Right.
And they're like, and it's funny you made the analogy about the cars, right? How many people would panic if their car's check engine light came on, but they're running around with their body check engine light going on for 20, 30 years?
Crazy.
You know what I mean? If your body had a check engine like that, motherfucker's been going on for decades.
Facts.
But your car flashes and you're like, oh my God.
Right. The bulb is burned out.
When's the oh my God happen for you?
It's crazy that the sense of urgency requires a check engine light, right? And even though your body be screaming at you, we don't view it as a check engine light. Oh man, my back hurts when it's cold outside. No, there's something, your body's talking to you, bro. Get it together. Like, that's wild.
Yeah, you're not moving me at all.
Yes, facts. And you always, I ain't gonna speak for anyone else. I got to drag my ass into the garage to do the exercise, right? Mm-hmm. Every single day, no matter what I've been through in that day, every day with a workout, I feel better. And you know it. And then it's the same thing with a salad. You're like,
I'm glad I did that. You never once drugged yourself to a workout and be like, man, what? I knew I didn't have that in me today. Right. Why did I even do all? You never once.
Never once. It's never once happened.
I knew I could do that shit. I knew I could drag myself.
It's the same energy when I have a salad. You know what's hella funny? I love salads. Why don't I eat them? I don't know. But every time I have one, I'm like, I should do this more often. This is delicious. It's crazy. This human shit is wild, bro. It's wild.
It is. So you guys are actually leading me now into the next question that I have. So this is how, we determine our fuel, or the fuel that we need. But the next question is what sacrifices do you have to make to acquire the right fuel, right?
That's crazy.
That's crazy. I'm sure when gas was like $7 a gallon in California, getting premium gas was not a fun adventure. I'm positive. But it's a sacrifice you make, because if gas is $7 a gallon, you got a choice. You could either sell your car and get a car that costs the cheaper gas, or you gonna keep your car up and running because it's paid off and you don't want to have another car note. But at some point, you're gonna have to make that decision. But when I started thinking about this particular question about the sacrifices that I've had to make to acquire the right fuel, I was immediately drawn to like my journey with real estate, right? Shoot, we all from the same neighborhood. So we know that I don't know of anybody in our neighborhood who was rich, right? I know people who went to the league. I don't know if they're rich, but I know they went to the league, right? But for me, when I started thinking about the sacrifices in real estate, I started thinking about the changes that I had to make in order to get to the space that I wanted to be. So my wife and I had this conversation, I want to say 2000 and maybe 2020. We had this conversation and she was talking to me like, what's your retirement plans? What are you doing for retirement? Now, my wife works for the state. I've worked my entire life in the private industry. In the private industry, there's very few organizations that provide pensions. I do not and have not ever worked for an organization that has provided a pension. So I've always known that my retirement is on me. It's on me. And so we're having this conversation and I was like, I'm thinking real estate is probably going to be my retirement vehicle. I need to get a couple of rentals, enough to make some good money once those houses are paid off. And then I'm going to retire on the passive income. And so we're having this conversation. And I didn't even realize the sacrifices before we were having this conversation for 3 years. And it started with a conversation with Bruce. But for 3 years, I had already been saving tons and tons of money, just saving because I wasn't living an elaborate, luxurious life. I was just living regular Billy in his regular apartment with not even an entertainment center, no kitchen table, because I didn't need those things. It wasn't, I'll sit on my couch and eat, whatever. But instead of trying to make life appear to be something to other people, going back to Tim, you saying, caring about whose opinions really matter to you. I was like, I don't care. You come over my house and you see I ain't got a table, then you see we ain't eating at a table. Is what it is. I didn't get a table until my kids started coming to visit me on a much more frequent basis in Utah. That's when I was like, okay, my kids need a table. But other than that, what, I need a table to do the Wednesday word on? No, I'm good. I don't need no table. And so I was saving money and I looked at the money I was saving, the relationships I was building, the discipline that I was establishing financially. And it's funny to be like in a space now where from 2020 to 2024, we've acquired 4 houses. Like, that's wild to me because not that it's impossible, but when you have this vision and you don't take into consideration all the things you're doing to fuel that, the discipline to be financially savvy, fuel, the discipline to build relationships with an amazing realtor that I have out here in Utah, fuel, the discipline to say, hey, I know I got enough money to go on a trip every month to anywhere I want in the country or out of the country, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to hold that back in the reserves. So when these opportunities come in real estate, I can say, yeah, that's what we want. Bet. Those are all sacrifices that I had to make in the moment. But going back to what you guys were saying about the gym, where at the end of the workout, you never like, dang, I shouldn't have went there and did that workout. At the end of getting these properties, I'm never like, dang, I shouldn't have went and got that property. But while you're not going on the trip, you're like, dang, well, I didn't get a chance to go on the trip this time. That kind of sucks, but I can live with that. Oh, I didn't get a chance to, get the latest and greatest. It took me, I don't even remember when I got the PlayStation 5. It was definitely not the first year to 2 years. It was like, no, this PlayStation 4 is working just fine. It wasn't until my PlayStation 4 started getting a little, okay, you're probably about to go out. Let me get a PlayStation 5. But I'll keep that PlayStation 5 until it starts to go out. And if I miss PlayStation 6, I miss PlayStation 6 and I'll get PlayStation 7. I don't care like that. But what sacrifices do you guys have to make to acquire the right fuel, or what sacrifices have you guys had to make to acquire the right fuel in your journeys towards your vision?
I'm gonna go because mine's short because I really feel like I need to listen tonight. This is good for me. My answer to this question is all sacrifices have to be made to acquire the right fuel. I've a lot of people that I love to death I don't even talk to no more because they weren't the right fuel. That's a sacrifice that had to be made, right? I'm in the middle of going through that right now. Like, in order to acquire the right fuel to make sure that this vision becomes reality, any and all sacrifices have to be made. That's my answer.
It's definitely, there's times where things get to that, right? Like if you go to the doctor and they say you're going to be dead in a year if you don't make some serious, then yes, guess what? Everything's being sacrificed, and you're all sacrificing with me. You know what I mean? But it's funny how these things have negative connotation, but they're not necessarily negative. Like fear is a component. You need fear. You need a protected on investment or insurance on the vision. So insurance could be, what am I preventing? What am I keeping out? Which that could fall in the line of sacrifice. But all of it's going to sacrifice a time component. Time is the biggest. It's the thing that costs you. That's like your decision maker behind everything. Time and really, it just comes down to time. Because when you sacrifice your time to do something else, you have to give up time. Unless you're just one of these rich people that don't have a job or responsibilities, you got to give up that oh so precious you time.
Even I didn't mean to cut you off, Tim. Even if you are rich, that's the scandalous part about time. Time don't give a shit about how much money you have, and that sacrifice of time. And then when you look back and you think to yourself, man, that's time, boy. I wish I'd have said that, Tim. I changed my answer. What sacrifice do you have to make to acquire the right field? Time. That's my answer. Thank you.
Time, man, because when you devote in one area, because look, there's this thing I read about. It's called what the heck is it? It's a term of basically the genesis. The thing is that human beings will sacrifice their greater good to get their time back on themselves. I mean, they'll go to bed later. If they had something that tied them over, they're like, man, I got my Netflix and chill time. I got my video game time. I'll just go to bed at 1 tonight. That's what's happening. I'm not sacrificing my me. I need that. So you'll be dipping into that. If you know and you have the discipline, which is the other component, if you have the discipline to see that through, and you get the little reinforcements here and there from the people in your support chain, sometimes it's like that little bit of support is what nudged me off the couch. And it's funny because once you're off the couch, you never, like we talked about with the workout, you never like, man, why did I get off the couch? Like, I'll give you an example. I took Friday off. I wanted a me day. Everybody else had school and work. Now, I'm going to give me one PTO day is going to get me 4 days off in a row. It's a deal if I ever heard one. Let me go ahead and do that. So on Friday morning, I woke up. I was like, man, I'm just going to chill, man. I'm just going to chill. And then I started thinking, you just going to chill here all day? You could easily go to the gym, come back, still have a ton of time. You had to get up early anyway. You had to take the kids to school. Took my ass to the gym. I came home. Very next thing I did is I got into get shit done mode. Cleaned my whole garage out. Garage wasn't like a Hoarders episode garage. Nah, it was a little bit carried away, but I'm not one that does clutter, so it was really on my nerves. Got that whole thing clean, got that done. All that's done. Billy texted me, like, hey, you want to get on the game? And I was like, hey, give me 30 minutes. I'm wrapping this up. And all that was done before noon. I was like, I could have done this a year ago. Like what's that? But then again, I wasn't motivated to do it. So
Right. Tim, your mic is muffling for some reason.
hopefully it doesn't keep muffling. But yeah, that's the thing. Time is the biggest thing. Are you willing to sacrifice the time?
No, that it's funny because as we always sit in these sessions, there's always something that I'm getting it, and you don't realize the time is that sacrifice until you're up, like you said, at 1 o'clock in the morning. Like, dang, why am I up right now at 1? Oh, because you wasted all that time at the beginning of your day, and then you had to do some stuff that you could have done in the beginning of your day. And so now you're tired from the stuff you did in the beginning that you could have done in the beginning of the day. And so now you're trying to get that, like you said, that me time back at the end of the day. Well, now I need time to relax. Well, yeah, because you didn't do what you're supposed to do at the beginning of your day. So I'm with that, making that sacrifice. But it's funny. I love Bruce. You say time don't really care about what you make. It don't care about how wealthy you is. Honestly, time don't care about how healthy you is. Time is like, yo, I'm moving regardless if you moving or not. Period, point blank.
For as long as you can until the death catches you.
Right.
The
I'm
first
outrun. What'd you say?
The first time I recognized that, story time with Bruce, the first time I recognized that time didn't care, that the world didn't stop, the very first time I recognized that, my wife was pregnant with my oldest child. And I was a knucklehead, young and stupid. This is years ago. And I had some warrants I needed to clear up. And so, let me go do the right thing. I turned myself into jail. Dumbest thing I've ever done. Don't recommend it. But either way, went down there and I had to spend my little time on I Street downtown. And they put me in a cell with an old black gentleman. Hella cool dude. I didn't eat none of the food. I just said, bro, you can eat it. They're feeding you guys this shit. But he laced me up with a little bit of game. But the one thing he was telling me a story and I was sitting there and they put me in the cell and it had a window and you could see all of downtown. And like, while this old man is talking to me, gaming me up, he was giving me a good message for sure. Like, it was crazy. But I'm just sitting there looking out the window. Like, damn, the world it ain't about to stop, huh? Y'all just gonna keep on living, right? Like,
y'all don't see me in here.
No, I'm in here. My whole shit is stopped, and I didn't do a bid or nothing like that. I just had a couple warrants I had to clear up. So 4 or 5 days, whatever it was, it wasn't anything crazy. But man, it was the very first time in my life that I recognized the world don't stop, time don't stop. It don't stop with you. What is it? The world don't revolve around you, but it definitely keeps revolving. Crazy.
Yeah, 100%.
You just hit me. When I realized as a kid that time didn't give a damn, I remember I was probably like 7 and I was watching the news and somebody had died that was part of the news staff or whatever. And the person that was reporting on the news was talking about he was this, he was a nice brother. He will be missed. After the break, we're gonna do it. And I was just like, damn.
Yeah.
Show, like damn, once you're dead, it's funny because to that same small circle that you hold dear, that's opinion you should matter, those are the only ones that day's gonna. You have people that will post, man, I can't believe so-and-so's gone, but they ain't talked to you in years or months or whatever. They're saying that because in some weird way it makes them feel important that they known somebody that is, passed. But that's a men's circle for another time. But I remember that's what stuck out to me is how quickly things just go on. And for even the biggest, like when Michael Jackson died, the Grammy still performed. You know what I mean? It's like nothing, like no matter who you are, what you are, it's time doesn't give a damn.
Well, even
time is the pack leader, death is coming up in the rear, and you're in between it. And you'll never catch time, but death is gonna get you eventually.
It's crazy, Tim, because I think the biggest, and I could be wrong, I'm just going off my memory from what you just said right now, the biggest celebrity death that I can remember, I mean, Kobe was big because Kobe was I loved Kobe, but I remember when Muhammad Ali died, right? They paraded in the streets, man. They cried for that man. Like countries cried for that man. 3 days later, boy, I'm talking about this shit still moving. You know what I mean? 3 days later, like don't matter. It does. When you're gone, you're gone. So time being so important, and then it goes back to that wasting of time, right? Like yeah, time is cold, bro. Like when you really sit down and think about it, like the amount of time we have here, and then and how we divvy up that pie every day. Like for example, it's great that people who are out here working every day and loving their job, loving their career. That's fantastic, because you should. Because 8-10 hours a day away from your home, to be able to go to your home, to enjoy your home for 2-3 hours, and then go to sleep, wake up, shower, and do it again. That's nuts, bro. And we just subscribe to that every fucking day. Like we got all the time in the world. We don't, and we waste so much of it. And then that goes back to what you said, Tim, about I'm chasing, but I forget that I got to be chasing this shit for me, because at the end of the day, when time catch up to me, it's going to be my fault, Bruce. It's your fault, because you wasted all this time on everyone, everything else but yourself. And that, and at 42 in July, realizing that shit right now, bro, hurts. Straight up.
Here's the thing, though. There was people that when I was growing up that were like my dad's friends. They'd be learning this shit. They were in their 50s. It could be like 40, our age. Like I'm not saying that we're young, but we're not old. And 40, like I seen this thing. They I don't know if y'all know who Wilford Brimley is, the old white man. You ever hear the old white man that was on the commercials? You might have diabetes. You know that guy?
Oh yeah.
So they showed a picture of him. He was in a movie called Cocoon back in the day, if you remember seeing Cocoon. And they were like, this dude was 49 when they made this movie, and he looked like he was 74.
Yep. I thought he had died, but like in the 90s. That's how old he looked.
So the thing about age is our longevity is a little bit better nowadays, so it's not the same. But it's funny when you think of everything is a time like that. There was that movie with Justin Timberlake where they were scanning time.
Mm-hmm.
And everything
out of time is what
the currency was time. Everything was time. That's really what it is. That cigarette you smoke, that candy bar you eat. Not saying you can't have none of those things, but the more you do those, that time starts adding up, that it's coming off you.
Mm-hmm.
You know? So there's things that you can do to increase your time. Going to the gym gets you a little bit of time. For Call of Duty fans out there, that's like the stem when you're in the gas. You know what I mean? Gets you through to the next thing. And it's when you start realizing that and realize, yeah, and confront the dark truths, like the trajectory I'm on, I'm not going to be 80, 85. Like,
right.
How many really, really old people you know that are overweight?
Right.
Old people, 90-year-old.
If they are old people and they're overweight, how many of them ain't on oxygen?
I'm talking about old, like 85, 90, 95. How many of those old people you know that are overweight? I don't remember a single one. So it's funny because we get caught up in this thing like, oh, you can't say things about people, it's body shaming. It's like, man, it's simple science, man. It has nothing to do with like how you look. That is the most simplistic, surface level way to treat that comment. It's crazy. It's like you have, oh no, be you, be who you are. Yeah, who you are shouldn't be how you look. That should be a part of who you are.
Whoa.
Like
who you are should be.
You know what I mean? Like you have these people that, be, if you're a big girl, be a big girl. It's like, or a big guy. And it's like, okay, but when you're dead because you had a stroke, then you're like, man, maybe I should get on a diet. And then you're going to be their motivation for them to make change when they were propping you up to not be the change. So it's just really funny how we make things that are simple way more complex than they need to be. It's simple. Try to eat better than you eat bad. try to work out more than your sedentary or whatever, where you're not moving. Try to be more active than non-active, I guess I should say. So some of this stuff isn't really rocket science. It gets rocket science when you want to take it up notches, but to get started, it's pretty simple. And I think we do a great job of overcomplicating things and making excuses to not give up that time.
Right. So this, Bruce, you had brought this up in your response as well, and it's my next question is, how do we determine when fuel is no longer the type of fuel you need or the type you need? And really, Bruce, you said there's people that I still love and I don't mess with them today. I don't talk to them. I haven't talked to them in years because I realized they were not the fuel for the vision that I was aspiring to. Now, the person, like you said, when you was a knucklehead, they were 100% grade A premium fuel, right, for those activities. But once you decided that my trajectory is launching me out of this stratosphere or this atmosphere into the stratosphere, I can't. That fuel ain't gonna cut it anymore. It's almost like, I don't know why I keep coming to this rocket analogy. There's fuel that's used to get you to out of the atmosphere into the stratosphere. Then there's another set of fuel used to get you from there into space. And then once you're in space, you can use rocket fuel to get around, but it would get you around a little too fast. So sometimes when you see people and they're up in space, they use just sprints of air. It's just, pss, okay, cool. That got me going in this direction. Okay, gotta adjust it. Pss. There's this air that's being used versus jet fuel, right?
A thruster instead of a whole engine.
Yeah,
we might just hold thrusters.
Exactly. So for you guys, how do you determine, even if there's a fuel that is a great source of fuel in a moment, how do you determine when that fuel is no longer the type that you need? And maybe a secondary question to that would be is, and then what do you do to either decommission that fuel or recycle that fuel for somebody else, or what do you do to make sure you're not just toxically dumping that fuel back into the mixing pot?
It's a layered question. It's a layered question. But something Tim said is crazy. Confront the dark truth, right? So but this is the thing though. This is why I'm thinking, but this is why it's layered for me. How I've had to do it is I had to confront the dark truth. This is no longer good for me. This is no longer doing what I need it to do. But that can be, this is double-edged sword, right? Okay, here's the example. This relationship has ran its course. Whatever it is, a job, marriage, friendship, whatever the relationship is, right? This relationship has ran its course. The fuel that we were using to get us where we were going is no longer working, right? Or the flip side of that is this is still great, right? Like this is good, but what you're providing isn't enough. I need more, right? Like, how am I saying that, right? It's not always that the fuel, I don't know. This one's tricky because it's a good and a bad. It's a yin and a yang. Like sometimes the fuel is no longer the type I need because it's becoming a negative, a detriment to what I'm trying to do. But sometimes the fuel you're providing is fantastic and I appreciate it. And I don't want you to like cut off that fuel supply, but what we need to do is put an additive. You know, when you put that additive in your fuel to make that engine even run even better, right? So it's that's two-pronged for me. That's salad, boy. Y'all got y'all dressing?
Right. It's funny because you're saying something similar to what I was going to say, which is when the vehicle's changed. Maybe you're not that vehicle anymore. You used to run on rocket fuel, but now you're not a rocket. You're a motorcycle. Or you were a diesel, but now you're a regular truck. And that's not compatible, you know? And sometimes the fuel changes, and sometimes the vehicle changes, because that's one of we're evolving human beings. We change. So you can't, like, nothing lasts forever. Nothing's going to have the same effect. And you got to be careful not to throw the baby out with the bathwater. Maybe it's like kind of like when some people have like some type of dependencies on drugs, they get a tolerance for the fuel.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, okay, if I restrict that type of fuel and I get it every now and again, it'll still hit. But if I'm looking at that to be my key motivator, that's usually a sign that you need something else. You need
Right.
that's when your fuel starts running out, you're plateauing in something. So maybe you need a re-examination of what your goal is, because that's going to change your fuel.
Tim,
Okay, so go ahead.
I'm sorry, Tim, you do it to me. I hate to interrupt your ass, but you do it to me every time. This is why I love this shit. Coming on here talking to you, bro. So in the beginning, a brother might have been a 1992 Tercel, right? You're going to throw that 82 octane in there, and that's good. That's fine. That's going to get you where you need to go. But in 2024, your boy might have turned into a Tesla, right? You need to plug me in and charge me. But you still trying to run that 82 octane in me.
Right. I'm about to blow the whole car.
Ooh. Thank you, Tim.
So it's exactly that. It's exactly that. Like typically when you start seeing that the same old thing isn't working anymore, it's because you've caught up to it. It's become too predictable for you, and you're getting bored with it, but you don't want to face it. So you need to re-examine what your actual goal is. Like it happens a lot of people when, again, using the fitness thing, is, oh, I'm doing this, and then they just start, okay, that normal stuff, the normal works out, I'm not getting the gains that I thought I was gaining. Well, maybe you need to re-examine what your goal is, because maybe you're doing enough now to where you reach something, now you're just maintaining. That's why you're plateauing. Now you got to inject something different to take it up another notch, and you got to re-examine the goal. So to me, it's what is the vision? How do I know? It's a re-examination of the goal. Why am I asking this in the first place? Why isn't this working for me anymore? What do I think it's not working? That goes for relationships and stuff too, man. Like you gotta have, like you said, the dark truth, right? My marriage that I'm in is my second marriage. My first marriage, the time thing really got me, because I was like, I have really two options: divorce now or divorce eventually. This isn't making it. This isn't, I can't even think of it. This isn't Carl and Harriet, Family Matters type relationship. There's an end to it. It's
this
coming.
Ain't Alan and Peg.
Right. So it's like, what's going to be the best benefit for me? The initial pain, and the saving the self of time, because I didn't want to look back and be like, dang, I put up with all this crap and I tried to make it. I knew this shit was going to fail. Now I'm 42, 48 years old, and I wasted so much of this time. And how much of it was I happy? I didn't want to go through that. And then you start thinking, okay, a lot of people say, hey, stick around for the kids. And I'm like, do I want my daughter growing up thinking that's what love looks like? And then you start having grown-up conversations with my now ex-wife, and it's not, there was no hostility, really. Is just, we're just two different people, and that's that time, man. She was no longer the fuel. I went to Tesla, and you know what I mean? And
right.
That's not a knock on her. It's just, and she would say the same thing. We were just two different vehicle types.
I love what you said at the end. That's not a knock. See, the thing about reality, the thing about that dark truth ain't always, it's not always a negative. It's not a bad thing. Like, you gotta separate things. Things do come to an end sometimes. I know, like how you said, it's not. My man's, when he said Al and Peggy, come on, bro, Billy, you gotta stop. I used to watch that show. Everybody used to be like, "Ooh, Kelly, ooh, Kelly." I used to be like, "Man, that damn Peggy." Woo. And Peggy, let me tell you something about Peggy now.
Yeah, no,
got some bonbons for her.
It's interesting, because for me, when I think about determining when the fuel is no longer the type you need, I always go to this analogy, is that fruit has a season, right? I can get fresh strawberries during the summer, and then in the winter, if I'm eating strawberries, those strawberries are out of season. And then whenever I'm eating strawberries in the winter before their season, they don't taste right. They're always bland. They're not sweet. They're not even juicy. They're just fiber. That's what it feels like. But when I eat fruit in its season, it's a much more pleasant experience. And I'm much more inclined to eat it before it goes bad. But here's the thing that never happens with fruit for me, right? I don't ever buy fruit and it goes bad and I say I'm going to eat it anyway. That never happens for me, right? But going back to Bruce, with people, we will buy the fuel of a person, right? And we'll take that fuel from that person, and at some point it is doing more damage. No different than a car that has low mileage versus a car that has over 100,000 miles. There's a different type of fuel or a different type of oil that you put in a higher mileage vehicle. And it ain't like, oh, well, this car calls for synthetic, but I'm going to put lawnmower oil in it. That's not how that works. But I never eat spoiled fruit when it's spoiled. But for some reason, sometimes we hold on to that fuel source longer than we should. And Tim, it's interesting because you in your second marriage, I'm in my third marriage. And it's weird because it feels like I'm in my second marriage because my first marriage probably shouldn't have even been a marriage, but it was a marriage, so therefore it counts. So I'm in my third marriage, and I was talking to somebody earlier today about how the first person that I married is so removed from my life. Like I don't even think about this person in any kind of regular stance. I have to be doing something that involves me thinking about a lesson that I learned from that relationship in order to think about that person, right? But I don't really think about that person in regards to our lives together. They're so far removed from me. But I think about, what if I tried to keep that person around as fuel for me, right? 22 years later, trying to keep that person around as fuel. I honestly believe that that person being involved in my life would probably cause more damage to my life, in the sense of the drama that they would bring into my life, in the sense of the person that I would become, how I would be fueled back into old habits and behaviors. That person would fuel me in that direction, but they wouldn't be fueling me in the direction of, hey, Billy, how are you going to become an entrepreneur? How are you going to make sure you're earning over six figures? How are you going to make sure that you're building an empire? How are you making sure you're building a legacy? How are you going to speak into people's lives? How are you going to help people? That person is not the fuel for that. And they never were. And again, it's not that they are a bad person. They never were. But it's not that they are a bad person. I'm sure they are a good person to the people that they are meant to be around. But when you combined us together, again, that Tesla and that gasoline, we were volatile. We were 100% volatile, and we brought the absolute worst out of each other in that relationship. So for me, I always go to that season of fruit. You were here for a season. If I was to put this person in a category, that category would be, I got some fruit before the season came, right? So I got this fruit before the season came. That didn't work out. I didn't like it. Then I got into my second marriage, and there were things that I focused on in that marriage that were phenomenal. But there were other things that I didn't even take into account that were not so great. And eventually, over time, Tim, I got to where you were at. Look, I could end this today, or I could end this in 10 years from now. But at some point, it's going to come to an end. I don't like wasting time. This fruit is already ripening. And if I leave it in the fridge next to other things that are fruit, it's going to ripen and destroy those things. So I'm going to go ahead and remove it from the situation.
How many people have people in their lives that are the equivalent to the purple strawberries in the container in the back of the fridge? You know what I mean?
Tim,
and that's just that's the person in their lives, the people in their lives.
Tim, how many people have people in their lives that know that milk been expired for a month and they still drinking that damn milk?
Right.
So, you know what? I'm gonna pour me one more bowl of cereal. It's gonna be okay. I suffer from that. Like, I'm not even gonna sit there and play no games. Like, and y'all both said it. It hurts my fucking heart. Y'all both said that shit. If it ends now, if it ends in 10 years, I know it's gonna end. Because I'm not retarded. Excuse me, that's a terrible word. I am not oblivious to my own reality, right? Let me say it like that. I know what this is, right? Oh,
Yeah.
man, this is crazy. Y'all should be.
And you know what's crazy? You know what's even crazier about this? That I think I can speak for Billy on this, and there's probably a ton of people that are watching this and that watch this and that will vouch for me. I have never once came across somebody that left unhappiness and regretted that they left that unhappiness down the line. It's always like, for me, sometimes I'll look at my wife and my current wife and I'll be like, those were really dark times that I was in. I would have did that shit a year or two earlier if I knew this was coming. You know what I mean? Like, that's like, it's in the moment you don't know. In the moment it's uncertain. But again, I think that's kind of the unwritten theme of the night is time. You get a choice in how you spend your time on this rock. How do you want to spend it? How much of it do you want to waste on it not being spent the right way?
So Tim, you're saying just the analogy, because y'all keep on going back to them all, and I love it. But what you just said about the other wife and the current wife. So what you're saying is, how I heard it was, you happy you did that workout. You're not regretting going to the gym that day, right? Like,
and again, in all fairness to her, it isn't a knock on her. We're just two very different people, and you know what? I bet you she thinks about that same thing too. Like, man, I'm so glad we parted ways when we did.
Right.
Because it's again, it's like we can go over like one of the oil and water, right? Mm-hmm. Each of them have their own purpose, but they're not really compatible together. But one's not better than the other, you know. Right. But it's just, that's what it is. Like, you're like, man, okay, we're two different. I'm evolving in one direction. They're evolving in another direction. If you try to conform, you're going to resent her for you not being who you are. And if you try to make her conform, now she resents you. Then you start playing the resentment hot potato. What would you rather be, the resentor or the resentee? And it's like, how about we just put the potato down altogether and not live that existence?
Right.
You know? And again, the time is too short on here to be like, that's the thing that kills me when you see these like unhappy people that are like in a bad mood all the time. And it's like, man, you realize you only got a certain amount of laps on this rock. And you're going to spend majority of, like, not to go off topic, but like, there was this lady, I had a little mini confrontation in the grocery store about a month ago. There's this guy, if you live in the Del Paso Heights area and you're familiar with the corner of San Juan or Silver Eagle and Northgate Boulevard, there's always a man out there talking in his microphone talking about Jesus, right? He's been out there, I want to say, since I think I was a teenager the first time I seen this dude out there. He's out there every day talking about, take the Lord, saying his church stuff. And I was in the grocery store and he was behind me. And there was a lady in front of me. And I only had a couple of things. He only had two things. He had a soda and a candy bar for his kids. And I went and I'm paying. And the lady in front of me had a ton of crap. So she's going through her whole thing. And then the guy comes up and she pays attention to what he buys. And he used the EBT card. And she goes, you're talking about all that stuff about the Lord. You use only EBT. The Lord wants you to work. Read that in the scripture. She's like, starts going off on this guy. And I'm thinking in my head, what is that? Why do you even care about that? You know, a wise philosopher known by Sean Carter once said, what you eat don't make me shit.
Right.
You know, and so I always was puzzled. And I was like, I was like, listen, I gotta tell you, I know he's got an EBT card. He's probably not working, but I don't know the history behind that on why that is. He might have a genuine reason why he has that. Secondly, probably the hardest working guy I know. Who else you know that's going to stand on a corner and no matter the heat for 10 hours a day, screaming into a megaphone, you know? Harder than what I do for a living, I'll tell you that. And she was like, yeah, if you say so. And she had like a little thing that she went on. But I called my wife in the car afterwards. I was like, I can't believe that happened. I can't believe she felt the need to say something. And there's people that live like that.
Every day.
And I call those people time vampires, the people that suck your vampire or your time away from you in negative ways. And it's like, I carry a stake on me at all times. I'll put it right through that vampire's heart. You're out in my life. I got silver bullets and stakes on me at the ready, you know, because you start realizing when you start seeing like some of these people we grew up with, they go away too early. And some of them because of the life they lived, and some of them it's because the way they took care of themselves. And it's like, I thought we were years away from starting to see some of these headlines, and it starts putting things in perspective for you. So,
no, it's well, you guys saying that what it brought me to, right? When I live in a household of people, and I don't care. I'm not judging nobody. I'm just going to tell you how it is. Nobody in my house, they're not morning people, right? But for me, time is so valuable that being able to wake up in the morning I'm a morning person. I love it. Like, woo, I get another chance at this G thing, man. Thank you for letting my eyes open one more time. That's not the energy in this house that I live in. And I always talk to them, you guys, we only get so many of these, right? These mornings that you guys hate so much. They're not, and tomorrow's morning is not guaranteed. So how you open your eyes every day and your first thought isn't thank you is wild to me. But again, time gonna come and get you, and you're gonna miss the morning. Okay, so like right now, everybody young, sprightly, you jump out of bed, go do what you want to do. Woo, woo, woo. There's gonna come a point in time in your life where you're gonna look back on all these shitty mornings you've caused on your own because you like chaos in the morning. You're gonna want that back. Because there's gonna come a time, and that's what I tell my children, there'll come a time where you can't just get out and jump out of bed. There's gonna come a time when you're gonna need assistance to get your ass out the bed. Or getting out the bed ain't gonna feel the same. And a beautiful morning in a broken body. Crazy, right? Because right now you got a beautiful morning and a young body, not hurt, not ill, anything like that. I'm old, bro. Wake up, my knee hurt, and I'm still smiling because it's a beautiful morning. They made a song. It's a beautiful morning.
That's the cruelty of life, man. And really, that's one of the sad things about being a dad is the wisdom you give. It's a deferred payment plan because you're not going to get recognition of the dimes you drop until and then they'll tell you, hey, remember that time? And you're like, man, I told you that? Damn. All right. Like you forgot that you said it, but you're like, that does sound like something I'd say. Because so much time, like my 23-year-old tells me stuff like that. Damn, Dad, did I tell you were right lately?
Right.
You told me this when I was like 12, and I'm like, I say a lot of things. It's one of the things I try to work on is not being so much of a lecture. Not everything has to be a life lesson, right? But that's kind of the thing is you can say what you want, but the ears have to be willing to hear it.
Right.
And often nothing is as educational as experience. And one of those people, to me, that echoes people that haven't experienced loss for real. But when they do, you always gotta lose something to understand how precious everything is.
That's
right.
Nobody knows how valuable something is until you have somebody that had something taken from them.
Right. Really quick, when you said that the ears have to be willing to hear, but the heart has to be willing to implement. That's the other part I would give that. Yeah. Because clearly our kids hear us. Like if my niece says, you told me this when I was 12, and I'm just now implementing it at 22, right? That is I heard it 10 years ago. but my heart is just now becoming willing to implement. I deal with that with Z all the time, where he'll call me. It's gotten to the
You
point
do
where,
that with Z.
where not only does Z call me when he needs advice, but his friends are now starting to call me. Hey, pops, I need to know. I'm dealing with this. This is the situation. What advice do you have for me? And I give them honest advice. What you're dealing with is not. It's not new under the sun. It's happened to me. It's happened. It's going to happen to you more than just this time. So just be aware that I'm gonna give you a solution that ain't gonna. It's gonna be the same solution the next time you experience it. But having these conversations and then getting to these kids and they're like, well, they're young men now. Getting to these young men and they're like, hey, pops, you were right. You're right. Z told me you know things, man, and you really do. Like,
I just had to say this before it leaves my mind. The realization that you wasted time should not be your excuse to waste more time.
Shit. Oops. Hold on.
Write that down.
Like,
that gotta be a key takeaway. Write that down. That gots to be a key takeaway. Key takeaway number 1. What did he say? That's crazy business. Crazy business.
And it's just, man, when we get off this thing, man, tonight, I'm really gonna go give my wife a big hug, because it's funny, because I wonder, and it's funny how outcome and processes determine takeaways, right, from your life. Like, if I didn't find her and I was in a worse situation, I might be looking back at my first marriage like, man, I should have just stuck that out. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's so crazy how dependent we are on the people we choose to shape our existence. And we could say that, nah, I am who I am. Nah, that ain't nobody
it's
is
not
that.
True, right?
It's who you happen to. And if I were to tell you, oh, it's so smart and calculated, and I pushed my glasses up and I did all this math to make sure I chose the right one, I would tell you you're wrong. It was a lot of luck that someone as remarkable as her was it's one of the things where I'm like, there's definitely a God. And my brother's definitely, like, I felt like my brother guided that to my life. It was exactly because I was in a really bad place in my life. And that was just like the little push in the right direction that I needed. But yeah, that's the thing, man. You just gotta, you gotta get comfortable with life being a risk. And you gotta be willing to play life like poker. Like in poker, you gotta be willing to play poker the right way and understand you could still lose.
100.
You can make all the right decisions and the person can still catch their 1 in 52 chance card on the river. That could happen. And you got to live life the same way. You got to be willing to understand nothing's for certain. Everything's a risk, and you got to be willing to put in the risk. But you can't use the excuse of what the comfortable prisoners get institutionalized, so they can get comfortable in a lot of situations.
Right.
And Shawshank Brooks hung himself because he got out of jail. You know what I'm saying? So you could get comfortable with ridiculous stuff. So I don't know. I just had a little consciousness thing going just now, but I didn't mean to interrupt, Billy. But that was just in my head, and I had to get it out.
Nah, unfortunately, you took me completely off track with the first thing you said, so I have no idea what I was saying.
I don't know where we were either. I don't know. I know what he said was a whole bar.
Yeah, no, that was more than enough for me. I actually was going to ask another question, but I think we're going to end it right there.
Drop the mic. Go ahead, Tim. Drop the mic.
Right there. So as always, I like to close with closing thoughts and farewell. So Bruce, I'll let you go first since Tim just got done.
I don't even know. Closing thought? My closing thought is I come here to talk to Tim. I come here to talk to me. I was going to say, though, you said something, Billy, right before Tim dropped that bomb. But it kind of took me back to what you said in the conversation we had. I called you for some advice. I don't know if that was today or yesterday. My brain has been everywhere. But you basically told me that the question I asked you, the answer you gave me, you said, how is future Bruce going to respond to the decision that you're making today, Bruce? And that comes back to time. And that comes back to sacrificing the fuel that I needed in that moment, what I thought I needed actually, and what I actually do need. And that what fuel do I need now? What full fuel will I need then? There's so many facets to this conversation. But the one thing that you did say is you got to let her learn. We were talking about my youngest daughter. I have to let her learn. But then listening to you gentlemen tonight, I have to implement the shit I'm learning, right? I come on this therapy session every time I can, every fucking time I can, because I always leave with something that I can implement. And then Tim says something so eloquent, like, just because you've wasted time doesn't mean you should waste more time, right? Like, damn. My final takeaways is our time here is not infinite. It's actually finite. And every decision that you make while chasing the approval or whatever it is, your title for whatever, your relationship, your kids, your job, whatever, the same energy and time that you're putting into that mission, that vision, make sure that there's enough fuel left in the tank for you, right? Because I know I'm doing all this shit for my children, right? I know that, but if I'm not here to do it for them, then it won't be done, right? So with that knowledge, I have to make more time to continue to just work on me, man. Just to work on me with the same regard, with the same intensity, the same intentionality, and the same love that I'm working for them. I got to do that for me. And that's what the hell I took away from it. I'm sorry. My word salad is crazy.
No, sure.
Just overhearing that's like the little piece you said, like you gotta let them learn. That's the nice way of saying you gotta be comfortable watching them fail. And that's so hard, man. That's one of the hardest things to do in leadership when you're supervising employees. That's one of the things when I mentor other supervisors, I'm like, listen, have you watched them crash and burn yet? And I'm like, man, I can't let them crash and burn. It's like, nah. You got like the Batman Begins. Why do we fall down, Master Bruce? So we can learn how to pick ourselves back up. And you gotta. It's hard because you're in charge of your protector. And it's like, and I think sometimes we extend the responsibility of protection too far. Right? I can't protect you against everything. At what point you're supposed to protect yourself from certain things, and I step in when necessary. You know what I mean? You don't bring out the sledgehammer to hammer a simple nail into a wall. So
right.
That's tough, man. You're not the only one that struggles with that, man. Everybody struggles with that, especially as a parent. That's a tough thing. Because you're watching time go by. Because now that you're older, you know how valuable time is, and you're like, man, you might be making these dumb decisions with your life. Like, what are you going to be 24 when you finally start getting stuff together? Like, we're wasting time here. Like, you see it as an urgent thing. They see it as that. You got to understand they don't know responsibility yet, and life hasn't punched them in the face yet.
But when it does, boy oh boy,
get back up.
Right.
Take the standing 8 and get the hell back up.
Yeah. What do you have as your closing thoughts, Tim?
That was it's a simple time, man. Like this conversation has evolved into me having introspective thoughts about myself and time, and how grateful how I've spent my time, and yet it points I need to make to maximize it at the same time. And that hit me when you said that. Like, sometimes I come on these things and I say stuff because it's a way of, there's things I don't know, and there's things that I do that I don't know why I do them or how I got to that point. And being able to talk it out would almost be like the equivalent of, instead of cooking based on how I feel, putting a recipe together. Okay, that's the thought process. That's what when I'm in the space, this is my playbook to get back to where I want to be. So it's been this has been so helpful with that stuff, and it's been informational to help me retain what I'm doing well and to get better and try to implement the things that I'm not. So again, what a blessing this is.
It's therapy.
Yeah.
I told you that's why I stopped calling the shows, started calling sessions, man. The men's circle sessions. But it's interesting. First off, Tim, it'll be in the key takeaways. Super powerful. Just so much. I had a person today. I was having a conversation with a person, and they told me, you're very disciplined, you're very stern, yet you're extremely caring, and you're an amazing teacher. And I look at like Fuel for the Vision as kind of this first road journey, what this first road journey has been over a decade, right? Like, I didn't start in these types of conversations. I didn't start in a schedule. It was just like, hey, it's gonna be on Wednesday morning before I go to work. Like that was where I was at, and to see how once I started seeing the things that were fueling me, like I think a lot of people think, oh, Billy does the first row stuff because he likes to help people. But what people don't realize is that by doing the first row stuff, first row becomes fuel for me to be a better person. First row becomes fuel for me to be more accountable to the decisions that I make. First row is something that drives my integrity, because it's like, hey, look, if you're going to be up here, and my wife will, especially with my wife, who will sometimes watch the shows, she's going to say, you talk about this with your men and you're not doing this, right? So first row acts as this fuel for me to say, if you truly want to be the best version of yourself possible, then you're going to have to utilize this fuel to keep propelling you forward and higher and higher. Because the reality is that the person that I am growing to be is not a person that I can arrive at. I can't arrive at. I will be growing long until the day I'm about to die. And I'm going to try to say something really good with them last breaths. Whether it's I love you, hey, make sure you wash behind your ears. I don't know what it's going to be, right? But the person that I am growing to be requires a supply of fuel that cannot be depleted. And that means that the fuel source has to be in constant flux for me. It has to constantly change from being diesel fuel to being unleaded fuel to being hydro fuel to being battery fuel to being solar power. It has to have this constant state of flux and change in order for me to continue my upward trajectory. Now, that doesn't mean there's not times where I start to kind of level out and plateau for a little bit. But my overall goal is when I feel that level out and plateau, what is it that I need to do to get myself to the next level and start going upwards again? It's why my workouts go from 250 to 300 to 500 to 1,000 to 500 to 750. It's why that happens for me, is because I'll feel the level out. I remember I was under the weights the other day and I'm bench pressing. I'm like, these 45s and 25s feel kind of light. Like your boy is getting strong. And so I'm bench pressing and I'm like, okay, now I have to change that up because I don't want to get too much size. I'm not trying to be like a buff neck dude. I'm not interested in that. If that's what you're into, great for you. It's not what I want for me because I'm not going to maintain that. I just know I ain't going to maintain it. But what I then do is it's like, okay, I want to stay this size, but I want to be strong. So now I'm okay, 45-pound plates. Okay, 25-pound plates. Okay, 45 and a 10. Okay, 45 and a 25 again. Okay, 45 and a 35. Okay, now 45-pound plate again. Okay, 35-pound plate. And I'm just continually causing my body to continue to work in different ways that it's not accustomed to working. Why? Because I don't want to plateau. If I'm going to plateau in size, I'm okay with that, but I'm not okay plateauing in strength. So I want to get that upright so that I can get to what my goals are. So as I'm sitting and having this conversation with you guys, it reminds me of the reason why I started the first row. was to build a legacy, but not a legacy where people just come and sit and can see Billy talk to a camera online or go back and watch stuff from a camera from Billy, but more so that I could come and learn from everybody's experience. I could share my experience. I could share my insights. I believe I'm an insightful person, but I also like to glean insights from other people. It goes back to Tim. One of the things you said was we learn sometimes experience is the best teacher, right? Well, I don't mean I have to experience everything, because some stuff, to be honest, I don't want to experience if I can avoid it, right? Hey, Bruce, you said don't turn myself in if I got warrants. For sure, I won't. They gonna have to. What I gotta send this payment to?
And that's it. It's the, can you learn through others, or do you have to learn the tough lesson? And the people that are smart in this world have the ability to learn through the experience of others. They don't got to go through it themselves. And if you're one of those type of people, which you clearly are, you don't got to experience it. You don't have to be told that you got diabetes and they're going to cut one of your legs off if you don't get your shit together. You heard somebody else go through that and be like, hey, let me cut this sugar out. Let me get the Coke Zero. Thank you.
Right.
You know?
I heard a saying, Tim. I heard a saying, a smart man learns through experience, and a wise man learns through others' experiences, right? So, again, you ain't got to amputate my leg from diabetes because I done seen so. Why would you ever try crack? I've seen a crackhead. Like, I'm not, you know what I mean? It's the same type.
Yeah, it ain't for me. That's what it is. Yeah, no, I've seen crack before. It ain't for me. I'm cool. Like, right. I don't have any kind of curiosity about it. Well, maybe I'll be different. For what? For why? Like, no.
I was a little curious.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not addictive to me. That's wild. That's wild.
My dad, that's one of the most powerful moments my dad had with me. It was about drugs. He took me over. Do you remember on the corner across Caddy Corner from Rainbow Market, it used to be a Shell station. It wasn't officially a Shell station, but it was like, they called it a Shell station because the rocks on the outside looked like shells. My dad took me to that parking lot. It was probably like 8 o'clock at night. And I don't know what provoked him to do this with me. I don't know if I had said something or he caught wind of something. And we're sitting in there. I'm like, I'm wondering why we're here. Because we're not ready to pump gas. We're just in the parking lot. And I'm like, finally I asked, I said, Dad, Pops, what are we doing here? And he goes, just watch. And about 4 or 5 minutes go by, he's listening to the oldie station, and I'm like, I'm watching, man, ain't nothing happening. And then this lady comes and knocks on the window, crackhead. And she goes, hey, you got a couple dollars, any extra dollars? And he goes, nah. She goes, man, I'll do just like the scene from Menace to Society. I'll do that for whatever spare change you got. And when that moment hit, he turned the car on, he looked at me and he said, you'll be doing that for change if you do drugs. So do drugs if you want to. And we rolled out. That was the whole point of us being in the parking lot. And I can recall everything about that. He was in his old Grand Prix. The hood was primered. You know what I mean? I remember everything about the day. I was wearing an Alf T-shirt. I just remember thinking, man, I ain't doing that for. Oh no. Listen with that.
No, sit down.
In fact, I'm gonna do you one better. I'm not gonna smoke weed either. I'm not taking any chances. You know, trying to wake up with one of those on in my digestive system. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
But so it's just, yeah. Try to be wise, man. Try to be wise.
Stick to wisdom. Man, Tim, you had some hella stories today. That's funny. So.
Bro, Tim, killing it, bro. Killing it. That's crazy.
Let me wrap us with these takeaways. So, as always, if you haven't watched the Men's Circle, I'm always noting in this throughout the conversation some of the key takeaways from the conversation. Tonight, I have 6 key takeaways to share with you. Tools for the first row. Take them with you, write them down, secure them. If you got to rewatch this part of the video, do so. But takeaway number 1 from the conversation was your mindset determines the efficacy of your fuel. Bruce, that was one of the things you had said very early in the conversation was like, I realized that my mindset is really driving my fuel source. If my mindset is not primed, it's like an engine without oil, right? If my mindset is not primed to receive the fuel, it doesn't matter what combustion takes place if my engine is locked up, if my engine is not receptive to receiving fuel. So key takeaway number one was your mindset determines the ethic. I struggle with this word every time. Efficacy of your fuel. Key takeaway number two is you don't go to the cornfield to pick grapes. And this really was said during the time of the conversation when we were talking about different types of fuel and where we go to get our fuels from. So talking about, again, deriving fuel from negative sources versus positive sources. You're not going to this negative place to go and get fuel. You want to try to drive yourself to positive places to get fuel. Because if you find yourself in negative places more often than not getting fuel, then it just means you're in the wrong place and you're just trying to figure out some kind of rescue plan to get yourself out of it. So you don't go to the cornfield to pick grapes. You go to the cornfield to pick corn. And if you find yourself with an abundance of corns and you want grapes, then you need to leave that field and go to the field where the grapes is at, or the vineyard where the grapes are at. Key takeaway number three is aimlessness wastes fuel. I think that's what you said, Tim, in regards to when we have a vision and we are aimlessly pursuing that vision, we're typically going all over the place. It's like going to it's like living in California, driving to New York, but really you needed to go to LA. So you wasted all this fuel to go over to New York, and you got to waste all this fuel to get back to California to then use the fuel that you really needed to just go to LA. So you spent a roughly 3-day journey going to and then another 3-day journey coming back for a 5-hour drive. Anytime you are aimless in your fuel, aimless in your vision, I'm sorry, you're going to waste fuel. So be very competent, and that is not the word. Be aware. What is the word?
Cognizant.
Cognizant. Thank you. I was like, I know this dang word. Cognizant. Be cognizant of how you are using your fuel and be cognizant of where you are at your vision. Key takeaway number 4 is what you devote in one area takes away from another. That was when we were talking about time. Like when you get 24 hours in the day. So if you decide you want to spend 7 hours talking on the telephone, realize that 7 hours is being taken out of the 24 hours and it's not going to reallocate itself back up into another activity. So if you are going to spend 7 hours talking on the phone, my recommendation, if your vision is about business, then make sure that at least 4 of those hours is about some business. Like, hey, so about this business really quick, about this idea that I have. Bruce and I, Bruce, it's funny, Bruce talks about how I've changed his life, but I don't think he realizes that one simple conversation that we had, and it's funny, Tim, that you remember like being in an Alf t-shirt and where you were at. I remember standing in front of my office window on the 4th floor when I was working in Utah, in the office, and Bruce and I are having this conversation, and we're talking about money, and it was like, yo, fam, we're at a point where we should be basically the lender and not the borrower, right? And that conversation just shifted me to where it was like, we're going to start saving money. And I was already saving money, but it was like, now we're going to start saving more money. And by being able to do that, seeing all that we've accomplished in like 4 years, it's wild to me. So realize what you devote in one area, it's going to take away from another area. And it's not necessarily what you do, but the intentions behind you, how you do it. Like no different than a person who plays video games. Tim and I play video games. Bruce plays video games. A person who plays video games and just plays video games, and a person who plays video games and they're a content producer. Those are 2 different things. I'm not a content producer on video games, but those are 2 different things. Like this person is making money, so they are taking their hobby of playing video games and applying their job to the same time frame. So they need to play video games and make money at the same time. That's a great thing to be able to do. I ain't learned how to do that. Probably wouldn't do that at this point. But be willing to understand that whatever time you are devoting, that time is not it's not a free transaction. That transaction comes at a cost. Sometimes that cost has risks associated with it, but overall at the end of the day, it's At the end of the day, it's your responsibility to balance your 24. Whether you want to sleep in or not, whether you want to wake up and see the sunrise or not, it's your obligation and your responsibility to balance your 24 hours that you have every day.
Right. Just to put that point home, because I know we're in the key takeaway segment, but there's no credit card that gives you time. There's no payday loans for time. That bank, once it's spent, it's gone. You can't get that bank back. So, again, the theme of the night, time, man. Spend it wisely.
Yes. Key takeaway number 5, confront the dark truth about your fuel. If it ain't working no more, it ain't working no more. Confront that. Like, real talk. If the fuel is no longer moving the vehicle, it's no longer moving the needle, it's no longer, helpful to the environment. We can go into the pollution analogy if you want, but if it's no longer helpful, confront the dark truth about that and about that fuel, and confront the dark truth, going back to the two different types of car, because sometimes it's the fuel, sometimes it's the vehicle. Confront the dark truth that it might be the vehicle that you are. And I think sometimes we think that, in a perfect world, that perfect vacuum, we think that the vehicle changes for the better. Sometimes we slide backwards and we go from being the Honda Civic back to the Pinto, right? And we got to decide from our mindset on how we're going to move back to the Honda Civic, and then how we're going to keep that and then move from the Honda Civic to the Lexus, right? So for that dark truth, don't think that just applies to fuel. It also applies to the vehicle or the person that you are, the mindset that you carry, the vision that you carry, and the vision that you're trying to get to. It applies to all those things, and you have to confront that dark truth. No different than what you said earlier, Tim, in regards to if you want to lose 60 pounds and you find in the first, month that you only lost 60 pounds in 6 months, and you find in the first month you've only lost 5 pounds, yet you're going to have to confront that dark truth. Is this really realistic for me? And what are the odds of me truly hitting this vision? And I get there's people who will say, aim for the moon, land amongst the stars, but that approach is not a one size fits all approach, because in aiming for the moon, knowing you're not going to hit the moon, that can be deflating to a person's vision and cause them to just say, what's the point anyway? I ain't gonna land on the moon, and that's really where I want to land at. There's no point in it anyway, so I'm gonna just let it roll. I've been that way, undisciplined with my credit when I was younger, where it was like, my credit's already bad, so I might as well just apply for another credit card, get denied, and then get the 20% off at the register on the purchase, right? And it took me a very long time to get to a space where it's like, yo, there ain't really much I'm gonna do that's gonna hurt my credit if it don't have real estate attached to it. Period, point blank. If it ain't real estate, I already got my credit card. My wife and I have 2 credit cards. We're good. So if it ain't real estate, oh, would you like to sign up for this retail card? No. I would not. I would not. Thank you though. Oh, well, you can get, thank you, but no, it's not worth the ding to my credit. So confront that dark truth about your fuel, about your vision, about your vehicle. Be willing to confront that, because I feel like oftentimes when we neglect or refuse to confront it, we end up where you were saying earlier, Tim. I can either end this now or I can end this later, but at some point it's going to come to an end. So you might as well confront the dark truth immediately. And then last but not
wait, Billy. Confronting the dark truth about your vision and the fuel does not give you an okay to give up, right? Setting goals that are more realistic and more attainable is not the same as, oh, I gave up, I can't never do it. And I'm only saying that, I'm only mentioning it for the people listening, because I struggled with that. I struggled with that for a long time. So I just wanted to say that.
No problem. And that leads us to the last one, key takeaway 6, the realization that you wasted time should not be your permission to waste more time. Man, dude, that hit me like, God, like, bah, bah, bah.
Absolute fire.
Like that, I don't even know what to honestly add to that, besides just because you wasted time doesn't mean you shouldn't waste more time. That's really the only shorter way I could say that. Because it's like, I think about those cycles that I've been in where you can go with depression, you can go with anxiety, you can go with anger, you can go with a bunch of different cycles that I've been in. But you get to this place sometimes. I used to get to this place where I'd be so angry where it's like I'm already this angry, I might as well fuck it all the way up, right? And the reality is that just because I wasted this time being angry doesn't give me permission to just continue down this path of anger and wreak havoc on my own life. And you can even take this again from the depression side of just because I'm depressed doesn't give me permission to commit suicide to just end it all. Like, just because you're depressed now is not a state that you're going to be in forever. Just because you've wasted time now doesn't mean it's a position you're going to be in forever. It's temporal. And the thing that makes it temporal, I believe, is our mindset and our willingness, going back to our kids. You know, can we hear? Can we learn? And then can we tap in with our heart and be willing to apply? So those are the key takeaways that I have for tonight. I went a little bit over time, but it was a really good session for the last session of the Men's Circle. We'll be back in July. I'm not sure what day in July because there's a holiday at the beginning of July, but we'll be back in July. We might have shorter shows in July just because it's summer and my child will be here, so I want to make sure I can spend some time with him. But man, I appreciate you, brothers. These conversations have been life-altering, life-changing, and just a blessing to be involved with for me, and hopefully for all those who are watching live or watching via the replay, and for you guys who have been on the show throughout the year. But that's all I got for you guys. As always, if you like this video, share it. If you share this video, like it. I'm always happy to engage with you in the live chat. Happy to engage with you in the comments if you're watching via the replay. But until the next time, until July, one love, peace, and God bless. Thank you for sitting on the first row.